Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Final Fantasy. That's like, yeah, radical, all that shit, dude, whatever. Fucking bullshit. Whatever. Final Fantasy, got the strategy. Final Fantasy, she can't stand me. Final Fantasy, she can't stand up. Final Fantasy, she can't laugh at me. Final Fantasy, this a new life. Final Fantasy, this a trilogy. Final Fantasy, this not moon rock. Body smoking on my latest.
Anti-human.
Dude. That dude. Dude. I need to wipe my ass.
The myth of the plumed serpent, revealing the real message behind the feathered snake. Carl Johan Kallman, November 27, 2017. The plumed, or feathered serpent is a Mesoamerican myth that has fascinated modern people for quite some time. Among the Aztecs and Toltecs, this divinity went by the name of Quetzalcoatl, and to the Maya it was known as Kukulkan. It was a much revered god who was believed to bring good tidings and civilization to humankind. His preeminent role in ancient times is evident from the fact that not only whole temples, but in fact whole cities, were built as centers of worship for this entity. Most well-known of these may be the so-called Pyramid of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza in Mexico, which recently was included among the 7 wonders of the world, and is the most well-known of all Mayan pyramids. Figure 1. The Pyramid of the Plumed Serpent at Chichen Itza. Note the 7 triangles of light projected onto the staircase as scales on the back of the plumed serpent that descends into the earth. Photo by Carl Kallman. Descent of the Plumed Serpent. The descent of the plumed serpent, shown in Fig 1, is one of the most remarkable light shows created in the ancient world. The 7 triangles of light, alternating with 6 triangles of darkness, can only be seen projected onto the staircase of the pyramid for about 20 minutes at the autumn and spring equinoxes, and maybe 2 adjacent days as well. It is an event that attracts some 100,000 visitors, and to the local Mexicans it is a celebration of the advent of spring. It is hard to convey how awesome this occurrence actually is for someone who has not had the chance to experience it firsthand. The reason it is so spectacular is that it is almost incomprehensible how the pyramid could be built so that the projection of the triangles only occurs on a specific day. This is not something you can build by trial and error, as you cannot move the pyramid a little bit if it does not have the correct position. It must be built right from the beginning, and when you realize this, it is something that really goes into your marrow. The Maya had a cosmic resonance that we have now essentially lost. Feathered serpent sculpture at the base of one of the stairways of El Castillo, CC by 2.0. Serpent, the central creator god. This raises the question why the Maya, about 1,000 years ago, built a pyramid, in fact their most impressive pyramid, with the purpose of worshipping a serpent. It does not quite make sense to modern people, who tend to look upon a snake as a low-level reptile, which does not seem worthy of any form of religious worship. For this reason, we have tended to dismiss the plumed serpent as a myth that lacked basis in reality, and was made up by an ignorant people. And yet, the plumed serpent was the central deity in ancient Mexico. Quetzalcoatl in feathered serpent form. Codex Tillerianorumensis. Public domain. Not only that, in the Popolvuh, which is sometimes called the Bible of the Maya, the plumed serpent was seen as the central creator god, the one that the other gods went to when the creation of this universe was to begin. According to the Mexican lore, we also know that the plumed serpent, among other roles, was regarded as the bringer of civilization and the calendar. In their view, when the plumed serpent disappeared, their civilizations would suffer. But as he returned, they would go through a rebirth and flourish. For this reason, it was a beloved god whose return they would long for. This particular aspect of the mythology of the plumed serpent came to play a central role in Spanish conquest of the Aztec Empire in 1519 to 1521. It is said that as the Aztec Emperor Montezuma had word of Hernán Cortés landing at Santa Cruz, he believed him to be the returning Quetzalcoatl, whom he feared as he knew that this deity and its human embodiments would not approve of their large-scale human sacrifices. Quetzalcoatl, god of wisdom, CC by 3.0. According to legend, an embodiment of the plumed serpent, a priest in the city of Tula by the name of Topoltzin Quetzalcoatl, had been expelled from his city about 500 years earlier, but had sworn to return. Because he feared this return, Moctezuma was very accommodating to Cortés and allowed him to enter his capital Tenochtitlan, today's Mexico City. This became the beginning of the conquest of this mighty empire by Cortés. His 600 men, 16 horses, and native allies, who remarkably defeated an emperor who was capable of raising an army of 100,000 men. This defeat is often attributed, at least partially, to the power the myth of the plumed serpent had over the Mesoamerican peoples, including the Aztec Emperor. Fall of Tenochtitlan, in the Spanish conquest of the Aztec Empire. Public domain. There are many other aspects of the myth of the plumed serpent as well. He had been given the calendrical signature of Nine Wind, and represented a positive spiritual force to the ancient peoples of Mexico, and was in conflict with his dark nemesis Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror. Global serpent mythology. Before we go into what the plumed serpent actually may have symbolized, we should take note of the fact that the serpent played a very significant mythological role in many other ancient cultures as well. What, for instance, may be the world's oldest preserved object of art is a giant python in current-day Botswana that has been estimated to be 70,000 years old. This is believed to symbolize a creator god revered by the ancestors of today's Bushmen. Similarly to the Aborigines in Australia, the rainbow serpent was the main creator god, and in the Amazonas the great anaconda was seen as the creator of the human beings. In fact, all over the world, including in the book of Genesis of the Bible, we find the serpent revered as an especially powerful animal. This does not match what a modern person would think of as a snake, and it makes us wonder why the serpent has played such a significant role in ancient myths. Midgard serpent wooden carving, detail. CC by NCC 2.0. The waves of creation. It then seems that there must be some more profound reason that the serpent, and in particular the plumed serpent, by ancient peoples would be recognized as a central creator deity, as I have elaborated on in 2 books of mine, The Global Mind and the Rise of Civilization, and The 9 Waves of Creation. A serpent is the most natural symbol to use by anyone who would like to represent a mathematical sine wave, and what the ancient peoples of Mesoamerica and elsewhere were aware of was that history, including the rise and fall of civilizations, was driven by waves of creation. There were in fact 9 waves of creation that created the universe, and the preset direction of its evolution. The reason that the plumed serpent went by the name of Nine Wind was that there were 9 such sine waves creating spiritual winds corresponding to 9 levels of creation as symbolized by the terrace-formed pyramids. Maya calendar, from the Mayan display inside the National Museum of the American Indian. CC by NCC 2.0. What the ancient peoples were aware of was the 9 underlying waves in the quantum field that was driving the evolution of the universe, our planet, as well as humankind. They did not use the same language for them as we would have, and instead came to call this wave form the plumed serpent, that they perceived as a living deity. Their entire calendar came to be developed in order to chart the movements of this plumed serpent, if it indeed was this wave, which they perceived as and symbolized as the plumed serpent. that was behind the rise and fall of civilizations, then it of course became of utmost importance to chart the ups and downs of this wave movement by means of the use of a calendar, if the predictions would fail. And this was indeed the case when the Aztecs became aware that the Spanish had arrived. Then the consequences would be disastrous. The problem of the Aztecs was then that the true Mayan calendar, called the long count, which accurately described the ups and downs of civilization, Fig. 2, was not used by them. Figure 2. The 7 days and 6 nights of the Mayan long count, sixth wave of creation, from 3115 BCE up until 2011 CE. Diagram Carl Kalman. As we can see from Fig. 2, the wave movement of the so-called long count, the sixth of the 9 creation waves, leading up to our own time, in principle displays the same pattern as the 7 triangles of light and 6 triangles of darkness of the plumed serpent of Chichen Itza that we can see in Fig. 1, much like a serpent history which moves like a wave with its ups and downs that makes the pendulum often swing with them. What may be even more remarkable is the fact that the wave movement in Fig. 2, which covers 7 peaks, each of a duration of a so-called backtune of 3,943 years, remarkably well reflects the rise and fall of major empires and civilizations in other parts of the world. While modern people, who are generally unaware of this wave movement, wonder why ancient civilizations have mostly disappeared, this no longer is an enigma if we recognize that upon peaks follow valleys that often, but not always, tend to bring the already existing civilizations down. The fire of Rome, public domain, cycles of creation and destruction, the plumed serpent, i.e. the wave movement of creation generating the alternating rise and fall of civilizations, is thus not a myth in the sense of being something false. The rise and fall of civilizations that this movement describes reflects a very profound truth of our existence and the power that drives its evolution. The ancient peoples worshipping serpents knew that history went up and down, and sometimes tried to chart this movement in mythological terms, or harbored the spiritual powers these were believed to embody. There were, in other words, reasons for the Aztecs, who saw themselves as living in a dark age, a valley, to fear the shift into a peak. Likewise, they would be aware that the plumed serpent would sometimes molt its skin and disappear as it set an end to a civilization. However, most people today have misunderstood not only the message of the plumed serpent, but also its underlying truth. We may call the plumed serpent a myth, but in reality, it is a truth, and I believe it is a truth whose time has come and may play a critical role for those that seek a path out of our civilizational crisis. The thunderbird is a mythological bird-like spirit in North American indigenous peoples' history and culture. It is considered a supernatural being of power and strength. 1. It is frequently depicted in the art, songs, and oral histories of many Pacific Northwest coast cultures. 2. But is also found in various forms among some peoples of the American Southwest, 3 U.S. East Coast, 4 Great Lakes, 1 and Great Plains. 1. Description: the thunderbird is said to create thunder by flapping its wings, Algonquian 5, and lightning by flashing its eyes, Algonquian, Iroquois 6. Across cultures, thunderbirds are generally depicted as birds of prey, or hybrids of humans and birds. 1. Thunderbirds are often viewed as protectors, sometimes intervening on people's behalf, but expecting veneration, prayers, and gifts. 1. Archaeologically, sites containing depictions of thunderbirds have been found dating to the past 4,000 years. 1. Petroglyphs of thunderbirds are found near Twin Bluffs, Wisconsin. They are in a shelter that was probably used circa 250 BC to 1500. 7. By people. Stories about the struggle between the thunderbird and whale, QV, have been traditionally told by various Pacific Coast tribal groups. Studies have scrutinized the possible connection with Cascadia subduction zone earthquake in the year 1700 that sent a tsunami to Japan. 8. Algonquian, Mississaugas, Ho-Chunk, Menominee. Tribal signatures using thunderbirds on the Great Peace of Montreal. The thunderbird myth and motif is prevalent among Algonquian peoples in the Northeast, i.e., Eastern Canada, Ontario, Quebec, and eastward, and northeastern United States, and the Iroquois peoples surrounding the Great Lakes. 9. The discussion of the Northeast region has included Algonquian-speaking people in the lakes bordering U.S. Midwest states, e.g., Ojibwe in Minnesota. 10. In Algonquian mythology, the Thunderbird controls the upper world while the underworld is governed by the underwater panther or great horned serpent. The Thunderbird creates not just thunder with its wing flapping, but lightning bolts, which it casts at the underworld creatures. 5. Thunderbird in this tradition may be depicted as a spread-eagled bird, wings horizontal, head in profile, but also quite common with the head facing forward, thus presenting an X-shaped appearance overall. 10. See under section Iconography below. Thunderbird and Lightning Snake Iconography by Grant Ketty, March 2023. Introduction. The rigid distinction between culture and nature in historic Western societies did not exist in indigenous cultures. Animals were not just sources of food and raw materials, but intelligent sentient beings as conscious and capable of understanding as humans and as capable in undertaking planned intentional activities. Figure 1. Kwakwakawakwa Thunderbird human in full bird form outfit. Milwaukee Museum 17,296. After Machin 1966. Symbolic presentations of animals or supernatural beings in both material artifacts and mythology, such as Thunderbird in his various transformations, are about relationships between what we see as the social world and natural world. In the indigenous cosmologies, beings such as Thunderbird play a role as active participants in ecological relationships. Figure 2. Thunderbird human in transformation. RBCM 11425. Coast Salish. Location unknown. Anthropologist Franz Boas felt that myth adjusts to the world, and that it supports existing institutions. Boas 1,898 hours, and 16 minutes 17. Designs reflect mythology that has a function in the society that espouses it. Mythology can be adapted from outside and serve a function, with some elements taken out and others added. Mythology, bringing out those points which are of interest to the people themselves. Boas 1916. 393. The world of art history has struggled with the problem of how to define art in indigenous societies in relation to that of the Western world. There are two aspects of what we call art in the modern world that I will focus on here. One of the important considerations is that art expresses a meaningful system of relationships and is a representation of cultural philosophy. Here I will not use the term art in referring to the subject matter of traditional spindle whorl designs, but the term iconography. Iconography is the subject matter or content of works of art, as opposed to their form and technical function, although these are integrated into the larger picture. When looking at the content, I am not asking the question, what does it mean? I am asking, what is the expressive or communication medium? Following the ideas of YALL 1998, it is clear to me that the images on spindle whorls are made to be seen. They are a reflection of social relations. One can undertake an analysis of the patterning of images on objects to understand social purposes. YALL defines art as a specialized form of material culture or technology whose particular purpose is to provoke a socially desired response. Art acts upon people. Imagery can serve many purposes. 1998. One, of course, needs to know what the images are. Imagery depicts a subject, often humans and other animals, supernatural spirit creatures, and their states of transformations. In the Northwest Coast cultural area, social relations are expressed in the iconography on many material objects. On the southern coast of British Columbia, images are on some spindle whorls, some blanket pins, some rattles, some house posts, some bark beaters and shredders, some boxes, some clubs, and many other things. Figure 3. Thunderbirds catching whales in their bird and human aspects. BM. And 1861.3 to 12.62. These are not just decoration, but images that had social, secular, and religious meanings. Representations of spirits made the world of supernatural spirits visible in the present. Figure 4. Thunderbird with his human aspect and the concentric circle symbol for thunder. BM. In 0030875001L. The imagery of spindle whorls is about the prerogatives of the uses and their connection with the supernatural. A spinning world could be conceived as a visual transformation into another world. Anthropologist Wilson Duff speculated that the spinning of the image on the whorl is like the experience of a trance, personal communication. I would speculate that a moving spindle with a thunderbird motif may be seen like the flight of a bird, and like shooting stars, can become seen as a living entity. But we cannot know if these ideas form the visualizations of indigenous people that were part of that earlier world. Figure 5. Thunderbird and bird human transformation. The plumed lightning snake is half hidden on the far right and the thunder power symbol on the left version of the Thunderbird man. AMNH 16.1, 1874. The sources of the iconography. In order to understand what underlies imagery on the Northwest Coast, we need to understand the nature of animistic cultures from which they have undergone their transformations. The iconography of the Northwest Coast distinguishes individuals, families, or populations as those with a history and those with special powers. I would infer that spinning and weaving are one of the contexts in which these powers are displayed and validated. Rozwadowski, in giving examples from the animistic cultures of Siberia, notes that much of the imagery reflects ideas about the relationship between the living and the dead. In a focus on rock art, he points out that rock art can be seen as a veil beyond which the other world could be encountered. The images of a rock surface are a reflection of another world that lies beneath. Rozwadowski, 2017. Similar rock art imagery and practices extend around the Pacific Rim. Although one needs to be leery of making historic connections with distant cultures of the past, concepts such as those surrounding supernatural beings have some long-lasting similarities that transcend regional boundaries. Petroglyph sites and carved images are often linked to the activities of shamans, but as Hill points out, focusing on the role of shamanism obscures the roles of hunters and their wives. Their thoughts and actions established and maintain relationships with prey animals, and may be more productively conceptualized as dynamic social behaviors embedded within the context of daily life than as privileged ritual acts. Hill, 2011. Carved images can be seen as integration between humans and what they represent. The images may be seen as a veil into the other world.
worm! This ends here! Gifted my people 1,000 years of suffering. Now I gift you an eternity in darkness.
They are ours, Lord Eldrath. The eyes of Nidhogg.
Aye. The worm lies broken and my father is avenged. With the wellspring of his vitality thus denied him, Nidhogg shall not linger long in this world. But behold the terrible price we have paid. My sire is dead. So many brother knights slain. We traded our honor for the strength which now courses in our veins. And still we are forced to make such sacrifice.
But not in vain, my lord. Hraesvelgr is the only great worm left in Dravania, and he dares not leave his lair. With Nidhogg's eyes in your possession, who now can challenge the might of Ishgard, ascend the throne, and take your rightful place as the ruler of our people?
Nay, my friend. I must forsake the mantle of king. Though Nidhogg be defeated, his wormling horde yet darkens the skies with wings beyond counting. As one who partook of Ratatoska's strength, it shall be my penance to bear a knight's arms until death grants me leave to retire. When that day comes, no prince shall perish, but a hell's-bound hunter of dragons.
But Lord Haldreth, what then shall become of the royal line?
Think of your people, my lord. Without a king, who will the common man turn to in his hour of need? How will he find his way without your benevolent hand to guide him?
I thank you, Sir Flavian and Sir Silvertrill, for dispelling my remaining doubts. With men of such wisdom and compassion in service to the realm, 'tis plain that Ishgard has no need of a king. But if you must bow to the demands of tradition, you need look no further than yourselves for one worthy to wear the crown. Fare thee well, my brother knights, my loyal friends. On these shoulders shall I bear the weight of my father's sins. With this lance shall I repay the debt accrued through our misdeeds.
What cruel jest has fate played upon us? Have we seized this desperate victory, only to lose a king?
We can but act as our Lord has bid. We few who remain must divide between us the rulership of Ishgard and her people.
Not I. My oath was to Lord Haldrath, and he alone. If he is not to be king, then I would hang up my shield as well.
Will you abandon us too, sir?
I would wash my hands of blood and betrayal, and take up an honest trade. Mayhap I shall serve ale instead of sharpened steel.
We four, then.
Forton, Heilenat, Dyrendare, and Zemail. But 4 houses to rule all of Ishgard.
And what of the throne?
We keep it empty. Until the day a king rises once more, we must assume the role of stewards. We shall shape our nation anew with a history of our own making, and let the truth of this dark day die here, upon the battlefield.
What ails you, friend? Are you wounded? You have borne witness to history. To the culmination of the first battle with Nidhogg. The legend of Ishgard's founding tells that our ancestors were led to the land of Kurthus by the valiant King Thordan. In the midst of their journey, they came to a wide chasm, where they were set upon by a great worm, Nidhogg. A furious battle then ensued, with Thordan leading the van. Though the brave king was slain defending his people, his son, Haldrath, the first Azure Dragoon, fought on undaunted. And with a mighty thrust of his lance, he gouged out Nidhogg's eye, forcing the wicked creature into retreat. Thus did this eldritch orb become a sacred treasure of Ishgard, lending its power to every knight deemed worthy to bear the title of Azure Dragoon. A rousing tale, is it not? Would that I could still believe it. But your vision, which we must accept as immutable truth, leaves no room for doubt, save on one point. If Haldrath took both of Nidhogg's eyes, Then how came this eye to be lodged in the worm's skull? Beneath every answer we unearth, another question lies buried. 'Twas a fierce battle, but one I knew we would win. Your fame is well deserved, warrior of light. Full proud am I to have fought at your side. I would fain return with all swiftness to Ishgard to inform the Lord Commander of our triumph. But we must first have words with Hraesvelgr. There are parts of this tale that the worm has kept from us, and I would know wherefore.
Love you guys. Don't forget to smile.
Anti-human.